What's up guys? In this video we're going to be taking this nice clean shoe and making it look like this. So in the last video we took this ordinary shoe and tried to make it look like something that would fit in the Star Wars universe. This was pretty easy to accomplish by just cutting off the laces and gluing some EVA foam panels to the top. However, this is pretty clearly just a tennis shoe as it is, with some weird panels glued on the top of it, so I'm hoping to disguise that a little bit and make it, look like something that a Mandalorian might wear. My inspiration for these was actually Pre Vizsla from the Clone Wars TV show. I'll throw up an image, but basically the inspiration was this kind of gray weathering along the front and the sides. These little plates also have some silver chipping around the edges to make it look like it's Beskar underneath. They are pretty heavily weathered, but that's kind of to be expected from shoes, which are going to be, on the ground. But I do really like the silver chipping around the edges. It really catches the light when you hit it at certain angles. I can only hope that people will actually think it's metal from a distance, but I think it looks pretty good as it is. So let's just go ahead and start this off. These are the 4 paints that I'm using. This was the blue, Beta blue, this is the black, it's carbon, here's the gray, that was the base coat, it's Doomsday, and then the silver chipping that I've been using is chainmail. I already made these little indents with my knife before when I cut it out, so those are just kind of almost perfect guidelines for me to paint on. So that's where I'm going to put my blue paint. And make sure to do the same on the other side. So that's it for the blue paint. I added 2 coats actually because one is usually not enough. You can kind of see through it in some areas. So I added a second coat, and I'm just going to let that dry for a little bit. Now I'm going to use some black paint and weather the plates a little bit to give you an idea of what I'm going for. I'll show you the one I already did. So basically, I'm going to be having this black paint kind of going off at angles, and this silver paint is going to come in behind it and do the same thing. This is important because you don't have the silver go too far over the black, because you want this black to sort of act as an outline around the silver, but when you're putting the black down first, you have to kind of estimate how much more you're going to need. So you'll want to put down like a lot of black, and then you can go in with silver later on, not as much. So if you try to imagine this part like without the silver painting on there, it's going to look very dark. There's going to be a lot of black paint because under this silver is black, so it really would be overkill if it was just black paint. But you have to remember that the silver is going to come in after it and not quite go as far as the black, so you have to sort of plan ahead for that. This is kind of funny, but when I'm using the black paint, I like to use the lid as like a little cup, because it's really hard to see the black paint in the bottle, so I can't really tell how far I'm going in. So I like to use the lid because you can really tell where the paint is. When weathering armor, you'll want to start out very lightly so that you don't overdo it immediately. And I like to do that by just going around the edges and highlighting them a little bit. So just kind of lightly brush it on. You don't have to do a lot of like scarring or anything yet. You're just kind of getting the outline of it. I already kind of know what direction I'm going to be having the scars go in. I'll kind of show the other one. So because this one, the scars are going diagonally to the left up here, I want to have this one in the opposite direction, so it's going to go diagonally to the right. So when you're weathering, you gotta always keep that in mind, like which way the scars are going, because you don't want to have like a crisscross pattern with the scars, it just doesn't really look right. So I just like to scrape a little bit to get started. If you do a little too much like that, it's okay. Remember, the silver is going to go on after this, so it's going to cover up like half. Half of the black is going to get covered with silver, so it's not that bad. You want to try to get the corners a little bit more than like the middle area, because the corners are where most of the damage is going to be dealt, I think, since everything is going to like bump into the corners probably first. So those can be a little darker. You also want to make sure that you weather the sides and the like underside of the panels, because if you don't, there'll be a pretty large contrast between the weathered sections and the unweathered. So make sure that you get these as well. And these are probably going to be pretty heavily weathered since they're like on the bottom. So yeah, you can pretty much just paint it black at that point. And if it does look like you're kind of destroying it, now with the like too much black paint, you know, just always remember, in this case, there's going to be silver going on afterwards, so it's not going to be quite as bad as it looks initially. And on this little lip where the bottom part meets the top part of the plate, there's like a area where there would be a shadow, and I'm just going to put some black paint in there to simulate a shadow, since like you can kind of see, maybe about like right there, there's like a darker area. So I'll just kind of put some light paint strokes under there. It really doesn't have to be anything spectacular, because that's never going to be seen, but if the light hits it and that's not there, then it will look pretty bad. So yeah, just like a dividing shadow. So I think that's good enough for the bottom part. Now I'm going to do the top part, and it's basically going to be done the same way. So most of the black weathering has been finished. Just added some random strokes here and there, as well as some light dusting effects. I don't think I did enough, because I did a lot more on this one, so I might go back later on. But for now, I think we can start on the silver chipping effect. And if it does look like overkill, you know, like I've said before, half of that black is going to be covered with silver. So I'm just going to take some silver paint and go around the edges again, just like last time. So that's a good start, I think. Like I said before, like the silver kind of covers up a lot of the black, so it really brings back that lighter tone to the overall project. Whereas this one like makes it really dark. The silver kind of lights it back up, I should say. So that's kind of the effect you get. And you want to try to stay within the black lining that you did first to get like that shadowed effect. So here's what the silver chipping effect is looking like so far. I'm gonna have to go back and add some black smudges across the top because these two are fairly different still, but that won't be too difficult. So here's what we got so far. I think this one has not enough highlighting around the edges, whereas this one has like really definitive black marks. But let's move on to the final step, which is adding the gray around the bottom to really highlight the figure of the shoe. Once again, this style is based upon Pre-Vizsla from the Clone Wars. There's a lot of light colored scratching around the bottom, sort of like a dust buildup, which is something that I wanted to replicate. Just looks a lot better than the plain black shoes that they normally are. Also, like, you can't really black weather a black shoe. It just wouldn't really look any good. Like with this, you wouldn't be able to tell there was paint on it, so you have to have a lighter color to weather with. And I'm just going to use the same gray that I've been using to paint these. Now this step is going to involve a lot of smudging, so if you're not comfortable getting your hands dirty, you might want to get like a rag or some gloves. But I don't really care because it washes off pretty easily. So you want to smudge it to make it look like, you know, dirt or dust was kind of rubbed off on it. So if you just put like, you know, that, it's too clearly like a paintbrush, but that most of it rubbed off there, so I didn't give it enough time. Also, you want to go like in an upward angle, so don't just like brush it up or in X's, or especially not curves. You don't want to curve it. You want it to go in the same direction. So it's all going backwards, that direction, on both sides. So with the bottom part, it's okay if it is very bright, because I'm going to have like a shade kind of effect where it's light at the bottom and then gets darker as it goes up. So you don't really have to smudge the bottom that much. So I've gone ahead and weathered this one all the way around, and I did fix some of the weathering on this one to try and even it out. You also don't want to make it too uniform, where like they're both exactly the same, because it's weathering, it's supposed to be kind of random. So yeah, I think it looks good for now. Like with this one, the only part I didn't weather is the bottom. I did with this one, but honestly, most of this is going to rub off. When you're walking around like on concrete, the paint is just going to fall right off. But I'm going to weather it anyway since I already did it with this one. The paint like in the cracks is going to stay there. So if I don't weather this one, you will be able to tell the difference. So I've weathered the bottom of the shoe. Again, it really doesn't matter a whole lot, but just in case, like, you're doing a photo and you want to have yourself kicking something, like you're kicking a door in or something, and you need to see the bottom of your shoe, that might be like the only case where you'd want the bottom to be weathered. With Star Wars shoes, it's always pretty fun to try and figure out a way to hide the laces underneath. And usually the best way is just to put like a plate over top of it or have like some vinyl fabric, because everything in Star Wars seems to be either a boot, a sandal, or like a foot wrap. So that's the weathering technique that I'm using to paint my armor, the Mandalorian armor specifically. This painting method wouldn't really apply to like the Clone Trooper, because clones don't really have silver chipping around their armor. It's all white through and through, so the chipping would just reveal more white. But with this one, I wanted to make it like it's Beskar underneath, like in the Mandalorian. So there is a bit of chipping. I believe on one of Din Djarin's thigh pads, there's like some silver chipping on that one. So that's it for this painting tutorial, guys. I can't wait to show off the rest of the armor. I have about half of it weathered by now, and the rest of it's already painted. But I'm gonna do another suit up video for that suit, as well as the Commander Cody one when I finish that one. If you have questions about this painting method, then feel free to leave them below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.